Over the last decade, I've gotten a peek behind the scenes at a lot of different ways of doing business, and I will be the first to say that some are definitely better, in my opinion, than others. But that is truly the best part of owning your own online business. You get to make the rules. Today, I'm sharing 7 things I do that might go against the grain and why I stand by them. If you've been looking for a permission slip to run your business your way rather than the right way, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Six Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a six-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of 2, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it. One of the hardest transitions that I was truthfully not really expecting when I left the corporate world was having to let go of the way that you're, quote, supposed to do things. So in corporate life, there are rules and procedures for everything. And when I transitioned to running Spect & Co full-time, it was honestly a little overwhelming knowing that I could just do what I wanted, when I wanted, and how I wanted. Over time, I've found a pretty good balance, and while the way I do things might be unpopular to some people, it works for me, my clients, my family, and the way I want to run business. So let's dive into 7 unpopular things I do in my business and why I'm not apologizing for them. So I wanted to start with the most controversial one first. So I don't put a limit on the number of design revisions for design projects. Now, this is, quote, unpopular because a lot of designers will charge for every round of revisions beyond like 2 rounds or something like that. So they'll say 2 rounds are included and every draft after that is an additional $100, $200, whatever. Now, I get why they do this. Their reasoning is that they don't want clients to get carried away. They don't want like never-ending edits. They want the project to end at some point, right? So I fully understand. That way of doing things has really just, for whatever reason, never felt good to me. So the reason why I have decided not to limit revisions in my business is that I really want my clients to freaking love their logo. I don't want them to feel like they have to settle for something that is good enough but not great because they're out of drafts and they don't have the budget to pay for additional edits. I also don't want them to feel nervous about providing feedback. I want them to feel like they can come to me and tell me exactly what they think. And even if what they think is, I hate it, start over, that's okay. Now, I've been lucky that that doesn't happen very often, but if it did, that would be fine with me as long as we were able to get them to a place where they really did love their logo in the end. One of my brand values is steadfast support. And this is the biggest way that we embody that. Like, even if we need to do, 10 rounds of edits on your logo, I'm going to be there with you every step of the way, and we are going to do what it takes to make sure that you are truly in love with your new brand. Now, the flip side of that is you run the risk of things getting a little bit out of hand. I think the most versions of a logo that I have done is like 25, which is, it's a lot. Like, it really truthfully is a lot. And at the end of that project, I definitely was like, okay, not an ideal client. And that's fine. It's a learning process. It's okay. I've never had that happen again. And how I kind of make sure to like keep things reining a little bit is I talk a lot with my clients. I explain things. I record Loom videos. We get on a call for them to provide feedback if needed. So we're really keeping an open conversation. So I know what they want and where their head is at, even if they might not be able to clearly articulate that to me. And I do kind of also set the expectation ahead of time of, hey, I'm not going to limit the number of edits that we can make, but if I feel like things are starting to get out of hand and go off track, then we're going to come back together and we're going to have a conversation about that. And everyone so far, fortunately, has always been really understanding and respectful of that. Number 2 is I do not charge more for a payment plan than pay in full. So a lot of service providers will do this. They'll say pay in full is $2,000 or 4 payments of $525, which works out to $2,100. And the idea here is first and foremost to incentivize people to pay in full and also to kind of make up for when people on payment plans inevitably stop paying. And I want to be clear, that does happen. That's a real thing. The reason why I don't like charging more for a payment plan is I never ever want somebody to feel like they have to go into debt to work with me, to be like, well, I want to get the quote pay in full discount, so I'm going to put this on a credit card. That doesn't feel good to me. And I know it's none of my business how people spend money in their business, but that's just something that has never quite sat right with me. I also don't want to deter them from hiring me due to money. I am not usually super inclined to give a discount, but I do want to make my services as accessible as possible. And frequently that means a payment plan. And finally, I have done so much work around pricing and making sure that my offers are profitable and a good value for my clients, etc. So my services just cost what they cost, and how you pay is not going to change that. Now, again, how do I keep this from kind of biting me in the butt, right? So far, I've been really lucky that I have only ever had one issue with a client stopping making their payments. And fortunately or unfortunately, they kind of just ghosted me on the whole. So they stopped paying and I stopped working and I never heard from them again. And it was annoying, but it was fine. I have been lucky that I tend to attract clients who have a lot of integrity and a lot of follow through. And so I don't have the issue of them deciding to stop paying me. So far, it hasn't really been an issue. If it becomes an issue in the future, maybe I'll change my stance on this one. Next is I try extremely hard not to use sense of urgency sales tactics. So a lot of marketing strategies rely on kind of like fake scarcity, right? They say, oh, there's only 2 spots left, or the price goes up at midnight, when that is not exactly entirely true. I don't like marketing that way because, for one, I believe in genuine urgency. I want you to believe that whenever I say I literally only have the time to do 2 of these projects in the month of May, that's real. Secondly, I just think that it kind of degrades trust, and I really care about my clients trusting me and building long-term relationships with them, etc. And back to the point of, I don't want somebody to ever go in debt to work with me. I also don't want them to say, okay, well, I wanted to work with you, and now you're saying that there's not going to be any more space, so I'm just going to put it on a credit card or do this or do that, or put themselves in kind of a sticky situation because they think that they're never going to have the chance to work together again. I also think that clients who don't feel pressured into a sale are more confident in their decision, and they're more likely to show up the way that I want them to show up when we work together and not feel like they were taken advantage of or rushed into pulling the trigger on something. So by not using I'll say a false sense of urgency in sales, it just really helps clients to feel more supported from the beginning. And whenever I tell them, take your time on making a decision, I mean it. Number 4 is not gatekeeping information in order to keep clients on a retainer. So one of my brand values is education and empowerment. And we're going to talk through kind of what that means. So some service providers will intentionally kind of hold back important knowledge so that clients have to keep paying them every month. I see this a lot with web designers in particular that say, oh, you need to keep me on retainer to update all of your WordPress plugins, or whenever you want to change the copy and photos on your website, that's too difficult for you, so you need to pay me to do it every time. I never, ever, ever want my clients to feel like their hands are tied and that they can't make any edits to their website or use their brand without me. So my goal, like I said, is to empower my clients, not make them dependent on me. I go through a lot of effort to train them and provide the tools and resources they need so that they can learn how to do all these things themselves. And frequently that leads to repeat business in kind of a more natural way, and a way that they feel like they are keeping me on retainer or continuing to work with me because they want to and not because they have to. So an example of how I do this is we give every client a pretty robust set of brand guidelines. We give them a tutorial library, and they get a free month or a free quarter inside our 6-figure brand society so that they can really understand the ins and outs of their brand and website and feel good moving forward without us. Now, frequently I have clients say, oh, I want to stay in the 6-figure brand society because I like having that support, and I love that. That's awesome. But nobody is ever going to stay in because they feel like they have no choice. And that is really, really important to me. Number 5 is going to be letting people out of their contracts. So you kind of at first thought would think the whole point of having a contract is not to let somebody out of it. But I've done this a few times, and I will continue to do it again if and when it makes sense. So, the kind of, I guess industry standard says once you sign a contract, you're locked in, no exceptions, right? And it's there to protect both parties, and I get that. But life happens, and sometimes there is a legitimate reason why a client needs to cancel a project or stop midway through or what have you. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And I think that forcing somebody to stay in a payment plan or in a contract with you just creates a really bad experience and a lot of resentment. So I'm going to give you an example here. In 2023, that summer after I came back from my maternity leave, I had a few clients say, hey, my business has slowed down a lot and I don't have the money to continue keeping you on my team. And I'm really sorry. And like, this is just the way it is, long story short. Most of them were at the ends of their contracts anyway, but I had one client who wasn't. And she was like, I really feel stuck here. I don't know what to do. So her and I were able to work together to come up with a solution that made me feel like I was not having her like completely bail on me, but that also made it manageable for her and her finances and her life situation that had just changed all of a sudden and she had no control over. So I do have some policies in place to kind of protect myself while still being flexible. So for example, when you put down a deposit, I'm not going to refund you. Any payments that you've made up until the point that you decide to cancel, those are mine. So that's not to say that somebody can get all the way to the end of their project and say, oh, never mind, please refund me my money. That's not it. But if we're partway through and something crazy happens and you need to pause or cancel your project, I'm going to work with someone to make that happen. I don't want ever someone to feel like they're forced to continue working with me because it just sours the relationship and they're not going to refer their friends to me. They're not going to come back to me down the road whenever they need more design support. They're going to be like, that was not a good experience. And she forced me to stay in a contract with her when it really wasn't in my best interest. So being flexible in this area, I think really leads to positive word of mouth and referrals from people who are going to do everything they can to respect you and also really appreciate your flexibility. Number 6, and this is probably number 6, is not nickeling and diming my clients for every little task. Now, I'll be transparent and say I've never added up how much time all of these little tasks have added up to. And if I did, I might have a different position on this. But a lot of times service providers will charge for every single little additional thing. Oh, you wanted to change one word on your website? I'm going to bill you for that 5 minutes. And I get it, and that's fine. That's probably, quote, the right way to do things. I just don't do it that way. First and foremost, honestly, this is kind of a silly reason, but it's just a pain in the butt for me to create an invoice for 10 minutes worth of work. Like, it's not, the juice is not worth the squeeze there for me. But on a deeper level, I think it helps create client relationships that kind of, they trust you. And I frequently have clients say, please be sure to bill me. Please be sure to bill me. And I'm the one saying, no, it's fine. Like, this one's on me. No problem. And I know that whenever they do have a bigger project, they're going to come to me and they're going to be happy to pay. Like I said, it keeps invoicing a lot simpler. So we're not sending out hundreds of 5-minute invoices a month that in total come up to like $100 that I end up having to pay my VA more than that to put those invoices together. So it's just not economical. And it encourages clients to come back for more work instead of feeling like they're constantly being upcharged and nickel and dimed for every little thing. They're happy to pay me when I do charge them for something. Now, you definitely do have to balance this, right? Because people will take advantage of it. So I have pretty clear ways to work with me. You can either hire me for a done-for-you project or you can join my membership. And that's pretty much it. Hourly projects are not really something that I offer, and clients know that. And so they are super appreciative whenever I am willing to make those little changes. And they also know that I'm going to set boundaries where it makes sense. I also will start to notice if it's an ongoing pattern with one particular client or another, and I will just tell them, hey, you know, we've done this many little things for you in the past few months, and I actually think that joining the 6-Figure Brand Society, where you get 2 hours a month of ongoing work, might be a really good fit for you to make sure that you get what you need and that we're always have the availability to do those things for you. Okay, and finally, we've made it to the end. Number 7, working early mornings, late nights, and weekends. So when I left my 9-to-5, I had been doing the side hustle thing and was like working at my office job, 9-to-5, 8 to 4:30, whatever, coming home, working in the evenings, working every weekend, like nonstop. So when I left, I said, I'm never going to work a night or a weekend ever again. And I think that in the online business world, there's kind of been like a culture shift where we're moving away from the hustle culture and into our like soft girl era, where everyone's getting kind of preachy about work-life balance and boundaries and taking care of yourself, and that's great. But I had to also remind myself that I didn't start my business to not work nights and weekends. I started my business to have a flexible schedule. And in this season of my life, a flexible schedule means working early mornings and on weekends because that's what makes sense for my kids and my family and just kind of what stage in life we're at right now. So I have learned that it's okay to create a schedule that works for me and that is not based on what the internet says is ideal, and that flexibility is actually a huge, huge privilege and a blessing of being an online business owner rather than kind of a burden the way that sometimes we make it seem. There are certain times that I feel inspired and I work better than others. And if I force myself into that 9 to 5 mold, my clients are not going to get the best work out of me. So I think the key point here is really that work-life balance looks different for everyone. And it's not really so much about when you're working or even how much you're working, but more so that your schedule supports the life that you want to live. And that's been a big learning curve for me. But now I am proud to get up at 5 a.m. on a Tuesday and get some stuff done, or work on a Saturday while my husband takes the kids to the park or whatever, because that supports the life that I'm trying to live right now. So kind of to close this out, there is so much advice on the internet and in the world about how you should run your business. But the truth is, with online business in particular, you get to decide. You get to say what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. Unpopular choices like the ones that I've mentioned can actually improve your client experience and your business because it makes you stand out to people and it helps them be able to relate to you. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with other moms who are also up working at 5 o'clock in the morning or on a Saturday or whatever, and they feel like she gets it. So I would just encourage you to trust yourself. If there's a decision that seems weird or unpopular, but it aligns with your values and you're serving your clients well and it helps support the life that you want to live, then it's the right choice, and that's okay. So I would love to hear what is something unpopular that you do in your business. DM me on Instagram and let's start a conversation about being unpopular, because I'm all about it. And for this week's shout out, I want to shout out my current business coach, Kelsey. Her business is called The Aligned Business, and she is super big on supporting people in running a business that truly fits their life. So I hired Kelsey whenever I was about to take my first maternity leave, and she kind of helped support me through that. And now I'm at a point where I'm working less than 10 hours a week, still running a successful online branding agency and doing a lot of those unpopular things that we talked about. And Kelsey has been a huge, huge support through all of that. So if you are an online business owner looking for some coaching from someone that is not going to shame you for doing things your way, I would highly recommend you reach out to Kelsey. I'll put her info in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in to the Six Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at @SpectandCo. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.